Hey there, Jen Fine here. I'm in a park in Astoria and been thinking a lot about what it means to travel in this new age, sort of with the pandemic somewhat under control in the United States, or at least sort of having shifted into a different phase here. And what does that feel like as a traveler? Because when I first was planning this trip, I thought, am I going to stay in Airbnbs? Am I going to stay in hotels? How am I going to know if they're safe? And now I am fully vaccinated with AstraZeneca, and I actually got a booster shot of Pfizer as well. So I'm about as protected as I'm going to be on the vaccine side of things. But still, there are breakthroughs, and even if it's not going to kill me as a traveler, nobody really wants to be down sick for a few weeks or days. And I certainly don't want to spread it to the people that I'm visiting. And so I'm always very conscious of my exposure. And interestingly, in every city that I've landed into, so San Francisco, Seattle, New York, Google has popped up on Google Maps the option for exposure tracking that will then be reported back to the state governments. And I've asked various locals whether or not they've opted into this, and all of them are like, oh, I've never seen that. Oh, I don't know what that is. And so I don't know if it's just because somehow Google knows that I'm a traveler, or exactly what that is. So if anybody has more comments on the Google COVID exposure tracking built into Google Maps, actually. So I haven't opted into it yet, because if I don't know anybody who's using it, then who's using it? And it's one of those, like, if we don't all adopt it, then it's not really very useful. And it also made me think, so what happens if, my Google Maps pops up and says, well, you were in Pike Place Market and there was someone there who later tested positive for COVID. Like, well, what am I going to do with that information? Like, how close was I to them? How long was I there? Like, if I don't know them, I probably just sort of passed them, or maybe was standing in line with them. And so does that mean I should go get tested? If I don't have symptoms? So I just sort of thought, well, I don't know what to do with that information. And if I don't know what to do with that information, it's probably just going to cause me a lot of anxiety rather than actually helping me stay safe. Now, this is my own personal process that I'm going through in terms of how to stay safe. Love to hear your comments if you think it's a no-brainer to opt into the Google Maps COVID exposure tracking. But that's where I'm at right now. I just feel like I've done all the things that I can do at this point, and if I get symptoms, I'm definitely going to get a home testing kit, or even just go straight to a lab, depending on how bad the symptoms are. And so it's kind of like, do I need more information to create more anxiety? And this is one of the things I've been thinking about a lot in managing my travel and my sanity and all of that, is I've kind of cut back a bit on my COVID news consumption because I want to enjoy this experience. And if I wanted to convince myself to stay home, then I would watch the news. But because I'm trying to figure out how can I go out into the world safely, I feel like the news doesn't really help me with that. And I feel like instead I just need to be out here finding the right ways. Like, okay, yep, so masks in these circumstances. Okay, this is too crowded for me. I'm gonna sort of not go here. Oh, this feels safe. I'm gonna, I'll keep doing this. And just kind of feeling it out based on my level of risk that I'm willing to take on, and given the fact that I am fully vaccinated, and if the people around me don't show any symptoms. Although, funnily enough, I was at the airport and I was asking for directions from this woman standing at the TSA line, and I couldn't quite hear her through the mask, and so I kind of got closer to her because I was like, oh, what are you saying? And then she coughed inside her mask, and she's like, oh, I'm losing my voice. And I just thought to myself, oh, so isn't that funny? Like, your instinct is to get closer to hear because you can't hear because everyone's wearing masks, but that's actually probably not what I should have done. So, Thankfully, we were both wearing masks, and so, you know, it didn't turn out to be anything, but you know, it's one of those funny things where you sort of have to manage, like, oh, okay, so maybe next time when I can't hear someone, I'll try to kind of counter that instinct to get closer to them, because I'm in a circumstance where, you know, that instinct's kind of not the right behavior, and so I just need to sort of ask them to speak up. So these are the things that I'm figuring out, and you know, it's a personal journey for me. Please don't take this as any kind of like you should or any of that. This is really just me sharing my experiences on how I'm navigating the sort of traveling in the midst of a sort of managed pandemic, maybe is what we could call this in the States at the moment. And I hope that it's helpful, and I would love any thoughts that people have about how they're kind of managing these kinds of tricky spots. And I will say one of the most awkward things is trying to drink on the plane without taking your mask off. And I kept like poking the mask up into my eyes whenever I was trying to drink. So, you know, try to find a way to like flip the mask up and get the straw in or whatever. So, you know, it's an adventure, it's a challenge, but I'm so glad I'm doing it, and it feels really good to be facing those challenges and figuring this out. And I know for those of you who are in Australia and facing lockdowns and restrictions, it doesn't feel like there's any hope, but I'm here to tell you, you will get there, and you will be able to do all of the things that I'm doing, sort of tackling the question of how big can my event be? Does it have to be outside? Should I mandate masks? Do I require everyone to have a vaccination? You know, all of those things, you will get to the point where you are struggling with those kinds of things. And it'll just become part of what we do to keep each other safe and get back out and live our lives. So it's coming, it's happening, it's slower than any of us want it to be. But please have hope and stay safe and be well. And I hope to see many of you very soon.